Hello guys, you're welcome to another tutorial on this channel. Thank you for stopping by. In this video, I'll be showing us the process of cutting and sewing this backless bustier top with straps. I used about 1 yard of African print to make this style and I totally love the outcome. So if you love sewing tutorials like this, why not keep watching and let's get into the video. My fabric for this tutorial is an African print which is 1 yard. But you can make use of plain fabric or any other fabric of your choice, okay? I also have this lining here, which is 1 yard. Although it doesn't match with my fabric, but I'll make do with it because this is what I have at the moment. On this pattern paper, I will draft my pattern before transferring to my fabric. And the first thing I'll do is draw a straight line, which is the starting line. Now, this top is a bustier top with strap, which is more like an off shoulder, and when drafting an off shoulder you have to determine how off you want it, so as take out that inches from your full length. For me, I want it off by 6 inches, so I'll take out that 6 inches from my total length. You can decide to use 5, 5.5, 6.5 or even 7 inches, depends on what you want. So I place my tape 6 inches on the starting line. Then I will proceed to measure my vertical lines. The first is my bust point, which is 9.5 inches. Next is my under bust, 13 inches. My waistline, 16 inches. And my desired blouse length, which is 25 inches. And I will draw straight lines across each point. I will also label each line. This is the starting line, the bust point, under bust, waistline, then the blouse length. The next thing to do is to measure half of your nipple point, that is the nipple to nipple measurement. So place your tape on the bust point line and mark half of your nipple point. Mine is 3.5 inches. Mark the same measurement on the remaining lines except the starting line. Then connect the point into a straight line. The next thing to do is to mark the dart. For my dart measurement, I'll measure ½ inch towards the center and 3/4 inch towards the side. Then mark the same thing on the waistline as well as the hem line. Then connect the points together. Now from this point on the bust line, I will come down by 3/4 inch. Then connect the points to each of the dart leg with a curve. Now I will add ½ inch to the half of my nipple point measurement and mark it on the starting line. ½ inch added to 3.5 inches is 4 inches. Go ahead and do the same thing. Add ½ inch to half of your nipple point measurement, mark it on your starting line, then connect the points to the bust line. The next thing to do is to tighten the overbust. For that, I will retake my dart measurement, which is ½ inch towards the center and 3/4 inch towards the side, and I will connect each point to the bust line this way. The next thing to do is to take the round measurement, but before then, we have to measure the armhole depth so as to get the chest line. Now, whatever your armhole measurement is, you have to take out that inches you use for your off shoulder. For me, my armhole is 7.8 inches, so I'll take out the 6 inches I use for my off shoulder and mark the remaining inches. I hope we understand. Then I will connect the points to this dart leg. And here we have the chest line. Now we can take the round measurement. On the chest line, I'll mark 1/4 of my bust circumference, then replace this dart measurement. On the waistline, I will mark 1/4 of my waist circumference as well and also replace the dart measurement. At the hem, I will use my hip circumference, so I'll mark 1/4 of my hip circumference plus ½ inch is allowance. Here, you don't have to use your hip circumference. Wherever your blouse length stops on your body, you can just measure around that place and use whatever measurements you get, okay? Now, I will connect the 3 points together. At this side of the hem, I will go up by 1 inch. This is to give that side a coffee shape. I will make it 1.5 inches because I feel that 1 inch won't be coffee enough. The last thing to do before cutting out this pattern is to measure the bust dart. Now the bust dart is the difference between your front waistline and your back waistline, and mine is 1 inch. So from the bust line, I'll come down by that 1 inch, then connect the points this way. And this is all for the drafting of this front pattern. I will cut it out now. Now for the bust dart, I will cut through this line and close the dart, then tape it down. Afterwards, align these two lines if they are not equal to avoid shortage. So here we have the center front and this is the side front. For the back pattern, I have my starting line and I also added 1 inch zipper allowance. Please ignore this other line, okay? Here, I will still take out the 6 inches before measuring the vertical lines just like I did the front. My bust line, 9.5 inches. Here, we don't need the under bust line. And the waistline will be 1 inch shorter than the front. And this is because my front and my back waistline are not the same length. This will also affect the blouse length. It will be 24 inches and not 25 inches. The next thing to do is to get the armhole depth. So I'm going to take out the 6 inches just like I did the front and mark the remaining inches for my armhole. Then draw a straight line across the point. So this line here, which is the chest line, will be the new starting line. The first one is no longer useful. The next thing is to mark half of my nipple point, which is 3.5 inches. And I'll mark the same measurement on all of the lines. Then connect the points into a straight line. Next is to measure dart. My dart measurement is 1 inch. I'll mark half inch on both sides of the straight line. Then connect each point to create the dart. Now I will take the round measurement. On the chest line, I will measure quarter of my bust circumference, and on the waistline, I'll measure quarter of my waist circumference. Then replace the 1 inch dart measurement. At the hem, I will measure quarter of my hip circumference plus half inch ease allowance, then connect the 3 points. And at the side, I will go up by 1.5 inches just like I did the front, then connect the point. Now for this neck depth, I'm not going to leave it as it is, but I'll go down by about 1 inch from the center. And this is to take out unnecessary fold of fabric at that part. And you can even take out 2 inches, it's going to be okay. Then at the waist side of the zipper allowance, I'll take out half inch. This is to eliminate zipper bulge. Then I'll connect the point this way. At this point, there are so many lines on this paper and I hope we are not confused. Don't forget, this is not part of the pattern. Now that half inch I took out, I'm going to replace it here inside. So when fixing my zipper, it's going to be in this slant form and not straight. And this is all for the drafting of the back pattern. I will cut it out now. Please pay attention to the lines I'm cutting so there won't be any mistake when you are cutting yours. So here we have the center back and this is the side back. Now I'll place the side front on the side back to show us that after you close your bust dart, you are going to have an equal length at the side. Now that we are done drafting the front and the back pattern, the next thing to do is to transfer each of it to our fabric. Here is the front pattern. The fabric is on fold and I added half-inch sewing allowance at the top as well as the side, 3/4 of an inch at the hem and 1.5 inches at the side. For the center front, I added half-inch all through and the center front pattern is on the folded edge of the fabric. For the back pattern, my fabric is also on fold and the allowance is the same way I added it to the front. For the zipper side, no other allowance will be added. I cut out lining pieces same way I cut my fabric, but the length is shorter, and this is because I don't want my lining showing outside. I want the main fabric dragged in a little. What I'm going to do now is to cut and iron interfacing to my lining because the lining is too soft. So I won't add interfacing to my main fabric, only the lining. The next thing to do is to start stitching. Now to your front panel, the bustier part, you can decide to add wording if you want. For me, I'm not going to add wording, I'll just stitch it as it is. While cutting on my fabric, I notched the under bust area. I don't know if you noticed. So I matched the notch parts together. Then I'll go over to the sewing machine to stitch using the sewing allowance I added. And I'll stitch the second part the same way. And after stitching the main fabric, I'll stitch the lining pieces the same way. Now I'll place the side back together with the center back, then place it on each other right side facing, and I will be stitching with half-inch allowance. I'll do the second part the same way. This is what the front looks like after stitching. I opened up the seam and I gave it a good press. I stitched the lining the same way and this is what it looks like. For the back panel, this is what I have and this is the lining as well. The next thing to do now is to turn in the front neckline with lining, but before then I'm going to add strap. Now this add the strap, the width is about 4.5 inches. I folded it into two, stitched the edge, turn it right out and iron the seam to the middle. For the length, it should be as long as you want it. Now I will mark where the strap will be placed. From where the seam line is, I'll mark 2.5 inches. I will mark the same thing at the other side, then place the strap where the mark is and pin it down. I'll place the lining piece on it right side facing, stitch the neckline with half-inch measurements. At the hem, I will align the lining with the main fabric, then stitch it together and also close the sides. But I won't close one of the sides completely. I'll leave an opening and that opening will be used to turn it right out. This is what I have after using the lining to turn all the sides. And this is the point where I turned it right out and I already closed it. I top stitched on it. For the strap, I ended up stitching it down at 2 inches away from the seam line, not the 2.5 inches I marked earlier. But I will advise you place yours 1.5 inches from the seam line or anywhere you feel it's perfect for you. For the back panel, before I use lining to turn the neckline, the side as well as the hem, I will fix the zipper. If you are fixing your zipper first as well, your zipper should not reach the hem. It should stop before the hem allowance. This is what I have after fixing my zipper. Now I can use my lining to turn all the sides. So I'll turn my fabric to the right side and place my lining on it, right side facing. I will go over to the sewing machine to stitch the neckline as well as the hem, and I'll stitch the second side the same way. After stitching the neckline and the hem, this is what I have. The next thing to do is to close the side. At the center back, I will stitch directly on the seam for the zipper. You know, when you stitch your zipper, the seam for it, so that is where I will stitch directly on. And at this other side, I won't close it completely. I will leave an opening to turn it right out. And after stitching, this is what you are going to have. I'll go ahead now to stitch the second side the same way. After stitching the zipper side and leaving an opening at the other side, the next thing to do is to turn it right out through the opening. And this is what the second piece of the back looks like. You can see how neat it is. You should be able to separate your zipper into two if you want it fixed this way. The last thing to do here is to close the side of the front and the back piece. So I'll place the back piece on the front piece, right side facing, then go over to the sewing machine to stitch using my body measurements. This is my top after closing the side. Now it is ready. For this upper part, I didn't use my bust circumference to close it. Rather, I used my upper bust measurement. If you use your bust circumference, it will be loose, okay? So to avoid that, just use your upper bust measurement. My bust circumference is 38 and here is 34, so I use my upper bust circumference. So guys, we've come to the end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please like and share. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, kindly subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one.